Well, good morning, West Ham fans. Now sit down, strap in, because could 2026-2027 season be the year that everything comes together? Well, a very good Wednesday to you. Hope you are all safe and well. So obviously we'll be starting the all the fun of the fair when it comes to our cup final at the weekend as we take on Spurs at 3 Point Lane. And but I thought I'd step away and actually look ahead, not just to the weekend, not just to this season, not just to the next season, but the season afterwards. And the reason being is obviously on Monday, was it Monday? We spoke about the news that Umbro and West Ham had extended their partnership, and Umbro being the technical kit manufacturer, whatever they call it, for another season. It was meant to conclude at the end of this season, but it's been extended to another season. And the reason why I thought it's of interest is when you start, and I not necessarily conspiracy theory, but I love looking at different things and putting two and two together and seeing connections. And I think 26-27 season is going to be the year of West Ham. It's going to be potentially a complete clean slate in terms of our existing partnership and agreements. And that's what I thought I'd go through. But also some hidden secrets about the Umbro deal. It's not all plain sailing. Now, let's talk about the Umbro deal in a bit more information, because I think that's our first starting point. Oh, you got half of me. There we go. What a shame. Now, as we said, yes, on Monday, that the deal with apparently Umbro as being our sort of kit manufacturers, basically, they call it, was it technical wear partnership agreement, is going to be extended for another year. And there's a little bit more backstory into why Umbro was selected. I mean, it's apparent, according to reports, that West Ham went out to some sort of informal tender, seeing what's about, seeing what other manufacturers can offer. And apparently Puma were a very close second. And indeed, Puma, you're going to be seeing from next season onwards a lot more of them in football. They sort of went a little bit quiet. But as of the 25-26 season, they're going to be the football providers for the Premier League, stopping a 25-year deal with Nike, I think, where they provided the footballs for the Premier League matches. Now it's going to be Puma from next year. So they're making a big play in football again, and with increased investment and stuff in the company. So you'll see a lot more clubs, I think, having Puma kits from next year onwards. They'll be a lot more visible in the Premier League, particularly. So apparently they sort of were a very close second to Umbro's pitch. However, the timing of the deal expiring, to me, suggests that it was more of a function of convenience than a strategic decision, in all honesty. Next season is the 130th birthday of West Ham. And with this in the back of the minds of West Ham, it would make more sense to continue with the status quo by having Umbro as the shirt sponsors, rather than bringing in a new shirt provider and all the potential pitfalls that could have in terms of supply of shirts, design of the shirts. I think actually Umbro have done a pretty good job this year, albeit with the, just don't like that gold triangle on the white on the third shirt. It could be also that we see a return to the crew kit with like the badge in the middle. That's apparently could be one of the options next year. I did like that kit with the old Dagenham motors in the middle. But regardless of that, it's a major factor, I think, in the decision. Now, that could be seen as good news. You'll see the logo next to me, which could herald bad news for West Ham, as although Umbro will be the badge on the name of the shirts, it won't be the manufacturer of the shirts. It'll be Castore. Castore bought the Umbro brand, and this deal will be Castore or Umbro operating as Castore, if that makes sense. It's believed that actually this was an insistence of the club in negotiations with Castore to maintain the Umbro brand for next year rather than Castore. And it's been speculated that we could see an Ecru coloured shirt as part of the 3 shirts. However, we know there's major concerns about the quality of the shirts that Castore produce. And it's not just an isolated incident, it's across the board. I've got a list here. Aston Villa players complained that the shirts were made of a material that didn't absorb sweat well. You remember it was almost like see-through at times, and it looked like they were completely drenched when they've only been playing for 10 minutes. Players said the shirts were uncomfortable, distracted them from playing, and the club, Aston Villa, was expected to end its contract with Castore at the end of this season. Wolverhampton Wanderers, they faced similar problems with the Castore kit last season. Charlton Athletic held talks about their partnership with Castore amid fan complaints. Castore had problems with Rangers as well, who they were their first club. The England cricket team World Cup kit, a printing error on one batch of shirts caused mismatching shirts, and the shirts were noticed too late to produce new ones in time for the opening matches. You'll see if you Google in, Castore shirts. Newcastle, they moved away from Castore to Adidas, and all the shirt rips, the collars, by Leverkusen, I think as well. Adam was saying. So there's lots of instances where the quality of the kit isn't of what we're used to. Let's say that. So although the badge will say Umbro, the brand is Castore. But that sort of is a side note to the bigger discussion I wanted to talk about today, which was basically looking at where we are at. So, obviously that deal with Umbro is potentially going to be, on the face of it, we'll run out at the end of the 25-26 season. So going into 26-27, we should have or could have a new shirt provider. Consequently, our current shirt sponsor, Betway, that will also run out at the end of next season, as obviously new sponsor as well. And then we can talk about the naming rights, and then we can also potentially talk about ownership. So if we started with, as we said, we've knocked off the old technical partners or technical wear partners, as it could be. Maybe, I imagine there'll be another pitch in terms of who we could get. We were led to believe Puma, Adidas, Nike were amongst the main contenders, and I say Puma very much were in a second spot. But Nike's is a quite interesting brand as well, particularly losing the football contract with the Premier League next season onwards. They'll be looking to get some more brands in potentially to sort of showcase the brand even more across the Premier League. And so that could potentially go hand in hand with a new shirt sponsor. As you said, we got Betway, so Betway will be running out at the end of next season as well. And we can obviously speculate who could be a new shirt sponsor. One interesting possibility, and again, I was talking to Adam about this last night, is could be Foot Locker. And again, it's not a name I've just pulled out of the hat. It's actually, when you look at some of the brands that Daniel Kaczynski actually invests in, Foot Locker is one of them. And Foot Locker is one of those stores with up to who supplies or houses over 70% of their stock is actually Nike. So again, this is pure speculation, but the whole idea of it is to just start joining dots up a little bit as well. Now, it might not be, Foot Locker might not be a viable option as a sponsor, in all honesty, we'll be looking for a hefty chunk of change. I mean, Holly did a show a couple of weeks ago about how we've undersold ourselves, really, in terms of what's available, in terms of the sponsorship deals. And I know Foot Locker are due to close a lot of low-performing stores over the next couple of years until they'll be in a more suitable place at 20. I think it's 2026 actually. So maybe they're cutting their cloth to spend some money on some sponsorship. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? I think what goes in hand with the shirt sponsors could be potentially the naming rights. Now, this is also something, it could 2026, 27 could be the end of the protracted soap opera that is the London Stadium naming rights. Obviously, under the current agreement, when we signed the 99-year lease, we after the first £4 million get 50% of what's left in terms of naming rights, which itself could be an interesting conversation, particularly when you're looking to bring in a shirt sponsor. You look at the Emirates and Arsenal, for example. They went in, got the naming rights for the shirts, and the stadium as well went along with it. And it would be an attractive proposition for any brand looking to get into football, looking to establish West Ham as their shirt sponsor. Don't think Red Bull, in all honesty. I think Red Bull's shirts only really tends to work well when it's on a white shirt, and obviously we can do that away from home potentially, but not necessarily with the claret. But you never know. We never know. And again, this is purely speculation. But what I'm trying to do is just trying to say that actually, we've had a few years where it's been a bit, sort of from a business, from a not necessarily obviously on the pitch we were doing this. We got into Europe 3 years in a row, but I think treading water maybe a little bit. The last year or 18 months, possibly. This could be an acceleration into the big boy territory potentially, as I'm saying. And then to tie that off, club ownership. Now, obviously, this is something which has been spoken about for many years, in terms of ownership. But what is quite interesting is the effect, and obviously 26, 27 would have just been coming out of there'll be the World Cup in North America and Canada. Now, we are led to believe that a number of North American, there's been murmurings that Baroness Brady and Tripp have been punting, looking for investment potentially, and that could come from North America or Canada, obviously both represented as host nations for the World Cup. So there will be increased interest in soccer for the for US investors and Canadian investors. In fact, I think it's Adam. What is it? He put 14 clubs now have major North American ownership now. So that's a separate conversation in terms of how that could, impact on the legacy of the Premier League potentially. You're looking at things like we talked about the 39th game. We've talked about, bigger TV rights, maybe even going down the NBA route where they have their own sort of subscription service rather than necessarily sell to the likes of Sky and whatnot, and they make more money through that. It's really interesting when you can easily go down a rabbit hole. There's links between particularly Canadian investment potentially and Tripp Smith through BlackRock. BlackRock is Tripp's former workplace, and head of the Alberta Investment Management Corporation is Mark Wiseman, who was a former manager of BlackRock and personally worked with Tripp Smith. And again, we're just speculating. We're putting two and two together. Now, obviously, my not naivety, but my skepticism is around. Well, that's been in place for years. Why Tripp's been why now, or why in 2 years' time? Why in 3 years' time? Well, there's obviously until last year, I think it was March 2023. Obviously, the LLDC had that sort of, what was it called? I can't remember what it's called. There was a levy involved, whether Gold and Sullivan sold the club within a certain time frame of moving to the Olympic Stadium. They'd pay a number, and it was actually not that much, in all honesty. I think Sean sort of broke it down in terms of that, because it was actually money owed and corporation tax. They didn't actually own that much to give them, but it was still a reasonable chunk of change for you and me. And obviously, there's many layers to that as well. Also, you've got the fact of, unfortunately, obviously, the untimely passing of David Gold, and then Jacqueline. Obviously, Jacqueline would have been one of the beneficiaries for David's shares, and so in essence, those shares have been going through probate a couple of times now. Obviously, it was 3-4 months of one another, wasn't it? I think it was very untimely, those two deaths, but they obviously put a kibosh on the time frame needed. And indeed, we know that Vanessa put up some of the. Now, David actually split the shares into two pots: his own pot and the family pot. And I think Vanessa put some of the family pot up for sale with Rothschild. That was back end of last year, if I remember. But obviously, it was a small percentage. So any real investor, if they really wanted to invest in West Ham, they would want a bigger piece of the pie. So it was almost like giving a smaller portion of a smaller pie. They wanted the bigger pie. So again, it could exemplify the fact why 26-27 could be, as Adam quoted, a golden year for West Ham. A minority of a minority is fuck all, really, in terms of what you can do. And I think that's been the issue. And those shares weren't picked up on by David Sullivan. They weren't picked up on by Danny Krasinski, despite the fact they have an agreement in place between them two and David Gold. That was signed when Daniel Krasinski came in as a second highest investor at West Ham. And if one of them wanted to go and buy the David Gold shares, they would then have to increase their stake. They would have to go through the whole process in order to get them. So it was a minefield. So that's why I'm 99% sure you won't see Daniel Krasinski take over full control of the club for that exact reason, because also he holds a majority stake at Sparta Prague. And as soon as you do that, you start looking at different issues. I mean, look at Enos, and you look at Nice and Man United, and we benefited from that in terms of the signing of Jean-Claire Todibo. He couldn't go to Man United because Ratcliffe has a major controlling stake in both Man United and in Nice. Now, it's as I said, it's fascinating. It's fascinating how all this could happen, and I think then you're looking at maybe investors probably not looking to take over or change ownership of West Ham until the decision around the stadium's been sorted. You look at someone like, I don't know, Man City and the Etihad. In essence, it was a similar deal. I mean, they could, extend, convert, improve, but we could do the same, but it would have to be formally approved by the council. And then obviously we've still got British Athletics, who are still technically housed there, I believe, as well. They'd have to be bought out of their contract. We had 99-year lease. I think they've got a 25-year lease on that as well. Indeed, they could be reallocating part of the Commonwealth Games, moved to Birmingham. That could be seen as a new home of athletics, and you could potentially move there. And obviously Tom Brady, American NFL player. He obviously invested into Birmingham City. Was that a coincidence? I don't think so. And so, in terms of improving infrastructures there as well, Birmingham could be the hub of athletics in the UK. There's so much. I mean, look, Adam's, bless him, he's done a fantastic job going through all this. As of May 2024, the London Stadium is valued at 910,000, which is a decline from a previous valuation of 1.5 million. My house is about 700 grand. The stadium's value is declining due to a number of factors: the cost to manage, the lack of profitability, contingent liabilities, and we have it's a lease. I mean, it could be seen as a mortgage. We've got a 99-year mortgage, really. So it's probably why Khan doesn't want to sell, because he's getting money out of West Ham every year. It's probably not enough, but in essence, we're getting bet more than the value of the property, in all honesty. So you've got stadium ownership, you've got stadium naming rights, you've got a new kit supplier potentially, a new sponsorship deal. This could be a massive change in 26, 27. And I appreciate it's a couple of years down the line, but it's worth knowing what's in the horizon rather than what's happening on Saturday, whether Falkirk's going to play. We will cover that as always. But looking ahead of that and looking into next year and the year after that, there's some big changes, mate. There's some big changes. And, we haven't even looked at things like, we've had a deal with, where's the deal with Klagenfurt in the Austrian Super League, Bundesliga with Andy Irvine, and nothing happened with that. Has that been? Are we going to be revising that? I don't know. Obviously, we've got a deal with Paris FC at the moment with Mohamed Kante. We signed the 18-year-old central midfielder and loaned him back. Looks like Paris FC are going to be bought out by part owned by Red Bull. And who's the other one? The other one is like Louis Vuitton. I think they're going to be bought by Louis Vuitton or something like that. Let's have a look. Who is it? Someone sent me it, and I was like, it's fascinating. Bear with. I appreciate this is a bit different from unusual content, but I think it's really interesting looking ahead and sort of trying to put two and two together. So, so according to media reports, the Arnold family and the LVMH, I'm pretty sure that's Louis Vuitton, have reportedly partnered with Red Bull to buy Paris FC. They're going to own 55 to 56%, very precise, of the football club, with the energy drink giant getting around 15%. With Paris FC's current major shareholder, Pierre Frahazy, is set to hold a stake of 30%, staying on as a minority owner until 2027, at which he plans to sell the club and sell his remaining stakes to the Arnault family, according to the Financial Times. Very interesting. Very interesting. And obviously, who have we just started working with? Paris FC. The conspiracy continues, my friends. Love a conspiracy theory. Anyway, that's enough of me warbling on. What do you think? There's questions I want to ask. Are you concerned about having, in essence, Castore as our shirt supplier next year? Although it's the badges, Umbro. They changed the badge, you idiot. It's Castore, really. That worries me. What about shirt? Not necessarily shirt sponsors. I'm sure you'll think, we want this brand or this brand, but what brands would you like to have? Would you be happy with to have on the shirt? We've had a few up there with Alpari and Betway and SBO Bet and Avco, Dr. Martens, Excel. BAC Windows. Who do you want on your shirt next year for a very important shirt, really? 130th birthday shirt. So it's an important one to have. And in terms, I think ownership's something we can't really, we can just speculate. But it does seem there's, once you start putting things in and adding this to that and this to that, it builds up quite a picture. Anyway, keep an eye on the channel. As always, we're bringing all the great stuff as per usual. Until next time, take care, stay safe, stay warm, stay humble, keep the faith, and come on, you bloody irons.